What's the good word, y'all? Welcome to Jets Therapy. What's the good word, Josh? Your boy DKB here. So once again, welcome to Jets Therapy. Late night sessions, getting out your favorite rants, talking through our favorite stressful team, the good, the bad, the ugly, the neutral. Today we are breaking down some of the things that we must fix for this New York Jets team in order to make sure we have a strong playoff push, right? And I think a lot of the discussions are going to start and they're going to end with the offensive side. I mean, defensively, we've seen a huge turnaround. We're still not piecing together a full 4 quarters worth of solid gameplay. But overall, things are on the up and up. This defense is not, the Legion of Boom or the Bears defense that we wanted to compare ourselves to. But I would argue there's definitely a point that if we keep seeing the type of performances we're seeing now versus the Eagles, what we've seen after the first quarter with the Chiefs, and then, what we put out there against the Broncos, you could make an argument that we would fall in that next highest tier of not quite elite defenses in terms of the total package, but definitely excelling within certain areas. But as mentioned, the offense is where a lot of these conversations need to start. It's been a pain point to watch, right? We've seen some improvements from Zach Wilson. We've seen some games where he's absolutely balled down. And then we've seen him kind of dive into what we're calling now, the game manager role and title for him, which is a solid place to be, right? I think the floor for Zach Wilson probably should be game manager. A lot of people don't even get to that status, keep in mind. But it definitely holds back this offense, right? And so that's a huge concern, especially given Zach Wilson's natural talents and passing ability, and then what we've done to build this offense around him. Wild Wave, my boy in the building. What's good, my G? So where do we start with things? Obviously, you kill the snake by taking off the head. So let's break down some things that are going on with Zach Wilson, right? And essentially are going to be in his control. I didn't get a chance to take a look at all of the splits yet, but I believe we have a slight preference for wanting to run, in general, once we get into the red zone and all that kind of stuff. But there are some eye-popping numbers, right? Now, when we think about the main issue being third down efficiency, we tend to think that we do very poorly, in the first couple drives, right? That's actually not the case. I've seen some pretty dope numbers that Jets X Factor was able to break down. And then, just kind of from what I'm seeing on the eye test and when I'm checking out the all 22 when I get time. Wow, wait, shit. Same, bro. Getting in some Jets content before I call it a night and wrap things up. But diving into this whole third down conversation, right? So the premise of this is that you want your first and second down plays to set up either ideally become first downs once again, or you set yourself up so that you're in a easy situation. You open up your playbook. You shouldn't have, down and distance concerns because everything's at your disposal, right? If you want to go out there and run a bunch of curl flat routes, you can because it's only 2 or 3 yards. If you want to go and try to attack deep, get aggressive, you can. If you want to attack the boundaries, you want to go inside, you want to run, you want to pass, you want to do RPO, you want to do play action. You can do all of those things and show some things maybe you haven't shown before to a defense. Or, if you're just running things down their throat with a play that's continuing been working for you, you can do that. Now, what the numbers actually show here is that, obviously we're ranking dead last when it comes to converting third downs. We're only converting a quarter or 25% of all of our third down plays. Absolutely terrible, right? And you see this very clearly on tape. We'll dive into this a little bit, but obviously I think how we're using our weapons is obviously a huge part of this in and of itself, but we're dead last. Terrible at converting third downs. What I see outside of personnel issues is that you get a lot of these routes that are stopping short of the sticks, right? And I don't know if this is by design. I don't know if players are necessarily giving up on the play once they sense some pressures coming early, because you see a lot of stacked boxes and stuff for the Jets on third down. Or again, this could be a huge personnel issue, but I think it's kind of a combination of everything. Something that should be a main priority for Nathaniel Hackett in and of itself. If you fix this third down issue even a little bit, I think you see a ton more success for this New York Jets team. So let's dive into it. Finishing before the sticks, personnel packages, two of the main issues, right? It's interesting that on first down, we actually are one of the more elite teams, right? We rank fifth with only an average of 6.4 yards to go before we get to the first down. So that's actually pretty strong in and of itself. I know it's only, 3-4-ish yards, but that's huge for a Jets team. Now, converting a first down on first down, we also actually end up being pretty solid at. We're the 11th best team at doing that. I would just say it's kind of rare, right? You don't see a ton of the first down success matter later on in these drives. And I see some of the new comments in here. I got you guys, Luis, Boycott. What we see our main issue actually being, ironically, is the second to third down transfer, right? On second down, we're dead last once again. We only average 3.2 yards per play on second down, which means basically we're looking at 3rd and 7s or longer. And so, we're it's tough to think that basically your second down play, what this actually means is basically your second down play is either going for no yardage or you're taking a slight hit because you're in the same situation you were in first down. And so again, once you get to 3rd and 7 and stuff, there's going to be certain play calls, certain packages and stuff you aren't going to want to run. You're going to have, let's say, at least 2 out of your however many, 4 or 5 weapons are on the field. At least 2 of those routes are probably going to be before the sticks. You're not just going to call go routes for anybody or, hitch routes to the boundaries, stuff like that. So it presents a lot of problems. Second down is where we're going to need the most work. And a lot of it is going to be the running plays, right? You see Dalvin Cook come in quite a bit on second downs. Obviously, we know how atrocious he is. When we are putting the ball in Zach Wilson's hands, we're still seeing stacked boxes, so teams are forcing him to throw it. We see him, and this is his mindset and kind of what the play shows. He has a tendency to want to get the ball out a lot quicker these days, right? We're seeing him around that 2.5 second mark or lower pretty consistently now. But he's generally not targeting players that are already beyond the sticks. You're seeing him hit a lot of guys in one-on-one situations where he's hoping that they can break a tackle, shake a guy out of his boots, and then they can go get some yards after the catch, right? Which is a huge emphasis of this offensive scheme, but I think he's taken it to an extreme measure, right? He's not always necessarily finding the open guy. And then again, with those one-on-one situations and the personnel that we roll out, we're not always necessarily winning those, which is pretty frustrating. But again, we'll dive into some of the personnel stuff in a minute. Luis, what players do you want us to get during the trade deadline? So I actually talked about this on the Jets Evening Brew earlier tonight. I'm a guy that doesn't necessarily think we should be a buyer per se, right? Obviously, I love our draft picks. I definitely have more so of a GM mind than a coaching mind per se. But I think you can do a lot of internal changes with this New York Jets team to see a lot more offensive success. I think we are a team that has shot themselves in the foot quite a bit. And we've had a lot of dumb mistakes that have really taken away opportunities that we've had. I don't think there's going to be a magic fix in terms of a weapon that you can bring in, right? A lot of people point to the wide receiver room. They want a true number 2 receiver. I don't think that is Alan Lazard for what it's worth, but still, they like a number 2 option in this offense consistently. But the question that I put out there on the Jets Evening Brew show was, even if you bring in, let's say, a Devontae Adams, right, wild scenario, he's still going to be just as minimized within his offense as what we're seeing with Garrett Wilson, right? So you're automatically not going to just see, Zach Wilson turn into an Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or any of the top quarterbacks out there just because we have multiple great options out there. I think we already have that in-house. He's not able to exploit the advantages and, do all the things that you would be able to expect him to do with what he has now. So if I was going to make a trade, it would be for the offensive line. The options out there aren't great. Everything kind of has one red flag attached to it. I would still look at a guy like Jonah Williams, for example, from the Bengals. He's a guy that's wanted to get out before. Probably would be an upgrade over Max Mitchell. I don't know if it'd be a huge upgrade, but it would be significant enough, I would imagine. But he's on a 1-year deal as well. I think he's finishing out his 5th-year option, or it's his 4th year and they declined his 5th year. But it would solidify the offensive line for the year, give you a talented young guy. You can see how he works out for the remaining 10, 11 games that we have. And then, of course, hopefully we make the playoffs and see a little bit more. And then you're looking at having to go turn around and give him a big payday right away. So I think internally we're good, right? The interior of the offensive line, guards and centers. I still like the guy on our practice squad, Jason Poe, that we were able to snatch from the 49ers. I think he could be a starting caliber guy for us for sure. But yeah, the tackle situation isn't great. So if we're not going to do that, I would say stay out of the market, right? And defensively, I'm sure there's a couple upgrades that we could probably still go and get in terms of depth. But again, I don't think you're going to do anything to significantly change and improve this roster by bringing somebody outside of the building in. I think Zach Wilson can legitimately come out of this by a better quarterback. Yeah, 100%. When I look at Zach Wilson centered around this coaching staff and what they've already done, I think there's already huge tangible improvements for sure. I know my boy Dark Soldier, he has shot me some stats, and I wasn't sure when I was going to use this, but where was it? So right now we are seeing huge improvements in terms of his expected completion percentage, and then his time in the pocket on his dropbacks. He's the 5th lowest right now, generally averaging about 2 seconds. So you take a look at him being able to speed up his timing. You take a look at the improved completion numbers. Eagles game was obviously a step back, but he had those multiple 70% plus games. And then you take a look at the lack of the improved decision-making, I would say, right? The lack of turnover-worthy plays and just the confidence, right? Going out there and being able to lead his team, 75 yards down the field for touchdowns. All of those things are definitely noteworthy. This is a coaching staff that prides itself on the teaching aspect of things, which I think is where we're seeing a lot of this improvement from. He's actually learning the quarterback position and what it means to be a quarterback in the NFL in terms of efficiency. And now they can take these 2 weeks to continue to harp on that, but also continue to really nail down and build this playbook for Zach Wilson without having to game plan for an opponent, that's coming into town or they're flying out for in the next 5 days. Barney, my guy, I appreciate you coming through. I know you were up late already on the Jets Evening Brew. We need to trade Lawson and maybe Cook. Yeah, it's interesting. We chatted about this too. I think there are some trade candidates on our team, but I think they all come with some red flags that make it probably a difficult decision for a team to want to trade for them. Carl Lawson obviously is having the injury that's impacting him. Let's say offensively, CJ Uzomah, if you take a look at him just on paper statistically, You would think that this is a guy that comes off the bench maybe once or twice a game over the course of the year. He's playing maybe 50 snaps. He's not even averaging a catch a game right now. So on paper, he looks absolutely terrible. And then if you do happen to go out there and take a look at the film, you see him getting beat up in the blocking department. And then you see him not having any standout receiving traits. So probably a hard sell unless somebody needs just that veteran presence in their room and they want a guy they feel like they can use as a real mismatch weapon. But they would be, I would say, is fool's gold for anybody else that's trading for him. Randall Cobb would be the immediate option in my mind in the wide receiver room. But again, aging veteran, doesn't really offer a whole ton. One of the worst in the receiving ranks at his position. And you're not going to trade Allen Lazard after you just give him that contract. Garrett Wilson's absolutely off the table. And all you have is a bunch of undrafted free agents and rookies behind those guys, realistically. The offensive line, if we were to trade anybody, I'd be absolutely surprised. We need everybody that we can get at this point just because we're having issues staying healthy, let alone talent-wise. So then you take a look at the defense, right? Carl Lawson, you can offer to poach. Maybe you finally start taking a look at a guy like Solomon Thomas if somebody's willing to scoop him up so you can move Tanda Smart up. I wouldn't touch the linebacker room. I wouldn't offer up any cornerbacks, really. Maybe the game that we just saw against the Eagles, you can let go of one of the practice squad guys if somebody's really intrigued. And then the safety room I wouldn't touch. So really there's kind of minimal options there as well, just so that you don't throw any of the chemistry or game planning off. Wouldn't be comfortable seeing any of the rookie guys like Jarek Bernard Converse or anybody like that have to step up in the safety room at the moment. Trey Dean will probably be interesting. But yeah, at this point, if we haven't seen him get called up already, I would say that's a strong indication why. So what's going on with the Hardman thing? They must be planning on signing or trading for another wide receiver and or some linemen. So my thoughts on it were Mecole Hardman, obviously the coaching staff they did everything but outright say that Xavier Gipson took his job. He's not, because Xavier Gipson's done so well in the kick and punt return aspects, there was no role in special teams for Mecole. The receiving department, you've seen Xavier Gipson snaps come up. You've seen them play Irvin Charles over Mecole Hardman. So I think that was a huge sign that this trade was coming. And so if anything, I would again say it doesn't make sense for us to go out there and sign a wide receiver. But I would say that means that they're much more comfortable with the idea of activating Jason Brownlee or giving Irvin Charles a little bit more of a role outside of what he's doing on special teams. Agreed as far as weapons. I do want an O-line. Yeah, for sure. Can we unretire the wide receiver that retired? Corey Davis. I would love the idea, but the whole him retiring and, being there for like a couple parts of training camp, but not really. And like the last that we heard about it was that he was out for personal matters before we got the official retirement news. I imagine he has some kind of long-term family, situation or commitment going on. I don't see him coming back, right? The two people that we've had on the team before that retired that I was hoping we could probably grab was Corey Davis, who obviously retired before the season. And then the other guy was Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. I thought maybe he could make a comeback, and then he ended up retiring just to give us some more options on the offensive line. But we need a guard more than a tackle. In my opinion, the interior of the offensive line has been pretty solid, right? I think you've seen more success from the tackles when we run outside because Allen Lazard and Jeremy Ruckert are such a strong combination, no matter if you're running left or right with Mekhi Becton or Max Mitchell / AVT. But you see pretty good runs out of Breece Hall in the interior. Everybody else is a little bit hard to determine, but even though Michael Carter's had limited touches, I would say that you've still seen him be a little bit more efficient, right? I think he's averaging between 5 and 6 yards per carry right now, even though he's only had like 5 or 6. So, yeah, I don't know. From what I've seen, the interior doesn't seem to be too much of a problem. Laken Tomlinson still want to find an upgrade. Maybe Jason Poe can be that after this offseason. Yeah, I don't know. If Joe Tippmann can't come back for whatever reason, I think that might be the only reason why you go out there and see if you can find an upgrade for a guy like Wes Schweitzer. I kind of want to keep Cook there still. Yeah, I'm way on the other end of that conversation, yo. I'm very upset with what I've seen out of Dalvin Cook and his rushing. Now, I don't know if it's a motivation thing. I don't know if the age factors really hit him hard. But there's literally no explosiveness on tape, right? Even the 8-yard run that he had, it just seemed like a solid crease in lane that got opened up, and he just happened to be able to keep his feet churning for a little bit. It wasn't necessarily any wild play where like he put the moves on anybody, not that you have to. But I haven't seen anything that's made me say, wow, this is a guy that's rushed for 1,100 yards. DFF, I'm going to go ahead and say I got it with Corey Davis. Wild Wave put it out there. Defensively, we got to get DJ and Sauce healthy. Yeah, 100%. The 2 weeks, I think, will really help out with a lot of that. If you have a concussion for more than 4 weeks, I'm going to say that we have a bigger problem on the table. I was just chatting with Sauce on Twitch. What? That's fire. Oh yeah, I forgot. Sauce is like a gamer guy out here. He was telling us all he had was a headache. Okay, but they made him take a brain test where he had to remember 10 words. Told before practice he got 8 right. Huh. See, that's interesting to me because hearing that in my mind, that would have made me think, if I heard it right before the game, that the Jets weren't waving the white flag, but that they were comfortable if they ended up losing this game, and maybe that they expected to, especially with rolling out the practice squad guys. That's interesting. To be fair, though, I do trust our Atlantic Health and Performance Department. I don't trust anything Robert Saleh has to say when it comes to the injuries, though. And I've seen some like interviews he's been doing, of course, this week, where he says some of that is intended and planned, to try to throw off the opponent. But other times it's not, right? He basically said that he's like, for whatever it is when he's delivering injury news. So yeah, I don't know. I can't say one way or the other, but I would assume that we're not taking him out on purpose. Uzama and Cobb aren't going anywhere. Yeah, probably not. We seem pretty committed to our veterans. I think they like the presence between the young and the veteran group that's here, but they're definitely going to have to take a back seat. I got a video dropping in the morning about it, but yeah, it's unlikely. I really don't think we'll be participating in the trade as much as everybody expects. Or if we do, I think it's going to be kind of like a mid-tier guy with some upside that people aren't really looking out for. Hopefully we see Brownlee on offense versus the Giants. That's a good game to see what he has. Yeah, the schedule lightening up. Having lesser defensive talent that we have to worry about coming out of this bye week is great, right? The Giants look like a team that everybody's essentially feasting on, even if it's not a complete game by them. It ends up being something where you can see like either your passing game go out there and have a strong day, or your rushing attack. So if we're going to experiment, this is going to be the game to do it. Bryce Hall's stock went up over the past 2 games. Yeah, for sure. And I know his freak injuries, the concussion stuff between DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner. But if anything, I would say this probably makes him a more important cornerback than Brandon Echols for us right now, right? We've seen that depth go away almost instantly, and a lot of us were panicking for this game. The flip side to that conversation is that, yes, A.J. Brown still went off, and we've seen some drops from like Devontae Smith, for example, but you've seen 2 practice squad guys come up that were only with us for, like 3 weeks or less, actually 10 to 13 days or less. And we went out there and we, stonewalled the Eagles offense to 14 points. So you can look at it and say Bryce Hall stepped up. He still looked like a solid, CB1 for us. Or you can say that we made things happen with practice squad cornerbacks. We can grab anybody and, work it out and try to trade them. But I would keep as much of the talent on hand that's working as we can and, go from there. Corey's and Turks and Caicos sipping pina coladas and building sandcastles with his kids. If you lose to drive to play, you really can't be on the field. Good point. It's also kind of why if there's any way we can get rid of a Randall Cobb, for example, I will jump on it because we have a few guys on this roster that said they were close to retiring, and then it seems like the only reason they didn't was because of an Aaron Rodgers. And, with him going down, even though he has the chance to come back, that has to be a huge blow to somebody that, doesn't want to do 110%, for the team. I really like Craig James over Tay Hayes. Tay Hayes I was cool with. I think the film actually wasn't that bad at all. A.J. Brown is obviously the more physically imposing wide receiver between him and Devontae Smith. And when I took a look at it, Devontae Hayes wasn't just getting beat outright. I think a lot of what we saw with Hayes is he couldn't match up with the strength of an A.J. Brown. And so you've seen him not really battling him in plays where he had press coverage. You've seen A.J. Brown kind of having his way during the routes, being broken off at the top and stuff like that. But he was pretty much there trying to contest every catch that A.J. Brown had. So I actually walked away pretty impressed. I also think he has more game experience from what I remember breaking down than Craig James, which, it's not huge. I think he only had like 13 games prior to this. But I was actually pretty impressed with Hayes. I think he's a guy that maybe could develop into something pretty good. Tippmann's done for the year. I feel, I'm really hoping that doesn't come back to bite us. If we don't hear anything by like the middle of next week, I'm going to say that I feel pretty good that maybe he just has an injury that's going to linger for a month or, 2 months, something like that. If we get news pretty soon, though, I'm going to say they've went ahead and chalked this season up to being done, which would be trash. And I think he's dealing with a knee injury from what I recall from that game. So you immediately start thinking about things like the ACL, PCL, MCL, all that kind of stuff. We've had a lot of the Achilles injuries, Garrett Wilson trashing the turf and all of that. But I think it was a contact knee injury with him. So I'm really hoping not. Joe Tippmann's a guy that's looked like another AVT type star, and hopefully his body's not made of glass. It's tough, especially knowing he's supposed to be our center of the future, a guy that's supposed to help us walk away from a Connor McGovern next year. It'll be a tough blow for us. What are we going to do with Michael Clemens? He's regressing. Yeah, I've chatted with him a bunch. I think this is going to be what his year is ultimately going to look like. Statistically, and even the game tape is going to look a lot worse. But he's going to have to find a way if they want to continue this project with beating guys that are heavier and stronger than him, which means he's going to have to improve his pass rush technique and continue to, even if he doesn't want to add on extra weight per se, he's going to have to improve his functional strength inside, because between being double teamed and then just one-on-one, already being, outmanned in terms of physical strength and, the weight factor, he's going to have to adjust. We made a lot of comparisons to JFM, which was probably unfair because JFM has athletic advantages that Michael Clemens doesn't. So you either hope he can figure out a way to beat guys on the inside by developing his technique, or you just go back to saying, I don't have an elite edge presence with a guy like Michael Clemens, but he's an elite run defender that can pick us up maybe 2 to 4 sacks a season, and you just happen to be okay with that. But it'll probably be a tough draw now since you're seeing Bryce Huff emerge, who we thought would be a run liability. And then you're also having Jermaine Johnson, who's already elite at run defense, but now you're seeing him get his pass rushing ability down. So probably a guy that'll ultimately end up looking like I don't know, maybe. Yeah, there's not really anybody to compare him to on the defensive line per se with what his skill set is. He would kind of be, this is a reach, but he would basically be the run stopping version of a Michael Clemens, but on the edge instead of being in the interior. That pass breakup by Craig was fire. Yeah. Craig James actually did solid. I don't know if the wide receiver was actually going to catch that one because it looked like it was slightly ahead of the receiver. But either way, it was a huge play. I thought he might have actually been able to snag that with one arm if he was a little bit quicker to the ball. But yeah, I can't say enough. I think the job both of them done was huge. Really give kudos to the whole secondary though, because we have Michael Carter lining up against like AJ Brown on the outside at one point. Robert Saleh was breaking down safeties playing slot, safeties playing, boundary cornerbacks playing slot, nickels playing safety. We did a hell of a job out there. I forgot where, but rumor has it that he's out. Yeah, I've been trying to pay attention. I haven't seen anything myself, but yeah, I'm gonna just have to keep knocking on wood and praying that he's not actually injured. Turf is trash. Yeah, I did see something like an ESPN article saying that like the league is going to focus on trying to. They weren't saying change everything to grass, but they were saying to make all of the playing fields across the NFL more of the same, which I think is kind of even between grass and artificial turf between the 32 teams. So I don't know what that's going to actually look like. But yeah, it's when you have your superstars saying that something doesn't feel right as they're going out there and running through things, I think that's a problem. I saw on Twitter that we're interested in trading for the Browns right guard. I did see that. That came up during a trade rumor and something I talked about with like Michael Carter being traded. I can't remember the dude's name though. I'll probably look it up in a minute. As long as Saleh doesn't say anything positive about Tippmann between now and next game, we're good. Facts. Coach should never again say he'll be fine in the kiss of death. Hope for the best. Yeah, whatever his instincts are for injuries, we need to assume the complete opposite of. And if it turns out to be actually great, then cool. Yep, Garrett said it well on Barden and Hahn. The pellets aren't settled. I was on the field twice this year, once on draft day and then at the New England game with Richie. Fire. Okay. Surprised how uneven it felt, kind of lumpy. That is terrible. Yeah, if it's lumpy, that's the worst because you have to imagine that like your foot's like this. And then if it's lumpy, you're like bending one part this way, twerking it that way. Yeah, you're asking for some kind of injury. Michael Carter, the second, got manhandled by Hurts on play this past. Yeah. Remember, though, Michael Carter's a miniature dude. He's like a Randall Cobb playing cornerback. Granted, he does actually hold his weight pretty well. But, yeah, it is what it is. Michael Carter's just going to be one of those guys that can kind of get beat up in traffic or one-on-one. At certain times, as with most people in the NFL. But yeah, he's going to be a little bit more susceptible to that. Yeah, that's the same situation I presented. He already has somebody in the building he'd be comfortable with. I want to say I had a straight up player for player trade, if I remember. I'm checking out the depth chart now. I don't remember if it was the same guy. The name that I remember was Michael Dunn. He's on injured reserve right now. And then the only other name would have been Drew Forbes. Both are backups. I'm scared if A-Rod comes back too soon, he's going to get re-injured and retire. It's tough. The only thing I really have to say about that is if he gets medically cleared, right, because he's not going to see the field without that. If he gets medically cleared, or when I should say, when he gets medically cleared, at that point, it is what it is for me. What I will find interesting is that if we actually do see a much improved Zach Wilson after the bye week, do you trust the guy who's been playing well this entire time, or do you go back to Aaron Rodgers and you now say, we'll trust the years of experience and all of that and hope that he's not rusty and the injury doesn't plague him. And you throw everything off with the offense that they've been working on that whole time. I think a lot of people automatically say just run with Aaron Rodgers and figure it out, but I think that's definitely a much longer conversation at that point. Back on the turf thing, I'm no expert and I never played even high school ball, just a bit of little league. But my school had that old AstroTurf and it was smooth. Lumps are weird. Yeah, from at least what I know, the only turf I ever played on was last year, actually, and I got beat up quite a bit on there. But there were no lumps. Basically, if you're setting a field, whether it's natural or it's going to be turf, everything should be flat. That's the name of the game, right? We're not sitting here playing football on hills and valleys. So if that's been addressed by Garrett Wilson to front office and, Woody Johnson and them, and that hasn't been done, then we need to immediately get to finding people or something, because that's dangerous. Doctor's clearing him to walk, but who's going to tell you, Rod? No, you can't. Yeah, facts. Yeah, and it was weird because I remember the report in the middle of the game against the Eagles, and they were like Aaron Rodgers was seen limping after he was throwing or something. And I immediately freaked out. I was like, here we go. Him trying to do too much, coming right out of the surgery. He's done for even longer. Zach Wilson can't see the field clear and always misses wide open receivers, but he has a crazy arm. Things are getting better, right? So jumping back into the conversation, right? The whole third down issue. We kind of already threw out the early numbers and all that for what's happening on each down. What I will say is you have your third down issues, and then we have what's going on in the red zone, right? In the red zone, is interesting because on paper, you wouldn't think he looks terrible, right? He has 30 attempts. He has somewhere around a 46% completion percentage, which isn't great. But he has 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. So all of that stuff looks great. But basically in the red zone, he's a below average quarterback. Pretty much in terms of every metric. You basically have 22 or more quarterbacks that are matching or have better statistics than him in terms of his attempts in there, his completions, his completion percentage, and then his actual touchdowns. He's only doing a lot better than most quarterbacks when it comes to not having any interceptions there, which I'll actually give him a lot of kudos for, because if there was ever a time where we see him revert back to playing hero ball, it would have been in the red zone, especially with the struggles that we had. So I guess the new pellet turf is lumpy because that's more like real turf. I don't know. Giant Stadium had real turf for a while. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't tell you a whole lot about turf. Never really played on it again until last year. But if you're settling something in, I would imagine you'd be able to tell as you're putting it down and you're doing your quality checks on it that something doesn't look right. So either they don't care, it's not quite true, which based on your own personal experience, I would imagine all the other players are, feeling the same thing. So I don't know. It's just a really odd situation. Do the kids get more playing time after the bye? I'm kind of tired of Cook and Cobb contributing nothing. Izzy would have had another element. Gibson deserves more playing time and activate Brownlee. Yeah, I would think so. If they are serious about taking a look in the mirror, especially on the offensive side, you have to take a look at the players that are literally doing, the worst at their positions in the league, or they're not effective really. And whether that's more on Zach Wilson or more on that player, it is what it is. But I personally point to more personnel issues. We're not taking advantage of mismatches. We don't have packages, it seems like, to really exploit what our players do well. For example, I mentioned when we had issues with Mecole Hardman getting on the field, let's have what we can call, AKA the speed package, right? You have Mecole Hardman, you have Xavier Gipson on the field, you have Garrett Wilson, and then you have your Tyler Conklin, or you have your Jeremy Ruckert. Garrett Wilson's an above average guy when it comes to speed. Xavier Gipson, Mecole Hardman, going to be one of the more elite guys when it comes to that speed aspect. Tyler Conklin, Jeremy Ruckert, same thing, right? You have a field full of great athletes for their positions. You can go out there and make a lot of things happen with Mecole Hardman and Xavier Gipson, whether you want to do run plays, whether you want to do pass plays. And I think that's a grouping that also works well no matter if you're in the end zone or you're trying to push the ball down the field, move the chains, etc. Right? It's going to be hard for any defense to have, 5 guys that can go out there and match up with every one of those dudes. So you have an advantage somewhere, especially when you factor in us implementing motion plays more often. Red zone. If you don't have guys that are skilled technicians as route runners, you could take advantage of the physical mismatches. Get your CJ Uzamas out there if you can get him against a smaller linebacker or safety. Obviously, any of the tight ends. Garrett Wilson's going to be that technician for us, but then you can go out there and use an Allen Lazard more effectively. I would say speed is probably where you won't see those traits work necessarily the best if you don't have an offense that's fully in sync, but there's a lot more you can do. If you want to activate a Jason Brownlee, right? Jason Brownlee, Allen Lazard, Garrett, any one of your tight ends, pick apart whoever it is you need to pick apart. Last year, this year is more that he's hesitating. The Chiefs game showed that he does see the field now. He's just afraid of making a mistake. I won't know if it's a mistake. We already chatted about him speeding up his timing already with him getting the ball out. I think that's a fair point. The turnover issues, I think, are definitely a good part of it, but we still seen the Chiefs game, we've seen the Broncos game where you still see him kind of being efficient with what he's doing. It's not like he's scared of making the turnover worthy play, and then you're also still seeing him throw for like 40 yards. I would say a lot of what we're seeing as a problem as well is that you're seeing more like half-field reads, and some of the play action plays don't make a ton of sense. Like we have him rolling out, play like a jet talked about this. You see him rolling out, and then he's having to like re-square up his body and stuff again instead of making a throw in motion. So like, for example, if you're rolling play action out to the right, you shouldn't have him necessarily needing to target somebody that's running a route to the left where you have to run around, you have your back turned to the guy, you have to re-square up and then throw the other way. So it's crazy how both Jets and Giants are willing to sacrifice their star NFL players for monster truck rallies and facts. And they do a lot at that stadium. I took a look at like one of their event schedules before. It's like, music concerts, monster truck rallies, what do you call it? I wanted to say bull trucking, bull riding stuff. Like it's a lot of things that would destroy natural grass out there. So I could see why they would have been reluctant to move to natural grass. But at the same point, like how much of all those other events is really a dent in your pocket if you figure out a different way to, utilize them. We had, WWE events and stuff there. It is what it is. Rich people problems, as they say. I'm going to get out of here in a little bit. I do feel myself losing my voice. It's been a very long day. But I got some more content to finish, like researching and prepping out and stuff. But I appreciate y'all coming through. A couple of people chatted about this before. It's crazy some of y'all being on the East Coast or even in like the Mountain West, it being 12, 1, 2 o'clock. Y'all time already hanging out. It's definitely greatly appreciated. That 2025 6-rounder is not worth helping the competition potentially fix the one weakness they have in their dynasty. So, and in terms of that Mecole Hardman trade, it could be the missing fix for them, right? But also, I take a look at it like their wide receiver core has been woefully underwhelming. Mecole Hardman isn't a number one wide receiver by any stretch of the imagination. So you could probably say that he helps fix a couple of different issues in terms of opening up their offense. But ultimately, I don't think it moves the needle a ton for the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. But if he hasn't been able to make it work with the group that he has now, Mecole Hardman is just going to help make things a little bit more comfortable. I don't think you'll be out there and seeing him throw, 4 touchdowns a game consistently or, 300 plus yards like that. So plus it'll take a little bit of time for them to figure out how they want to change things because Kadarius Toney did have his role. So you're either having Mecole Hardman replace him and now you got to figure out what to do with Kadarius Toney or you build out a package to utilize both of them. It is what it is. Special teams may be the best in the league. I hope Irv Charles stays with the team. He's a beast. Yeah. I called this when we had the kickers, let alone some of the newer guys that we brought in. But yeah, he what's our boy's name again? Hold up. I'm drawing a blank. Brand Boyer, our special teams coach. He was always going to end up having what I thought was going to be like the top 5 unit, just because we did have Zerline in here, and then we had I always want to call him like Weatherford or something before it comes to me. Morstead. There we go. And we had Morstead. So I always thought we were going to be great from that standpoint. Boyer's always done a pretty solid job with like his gunners and the rest of the unit with getting the most out of some of those guys. But yeah, we got a lot younger, a lot more dynamic with like the athletes and stuff we're putting out there. Irv Charles is a different kind of beast. He might be another one of those low-key Justin Hardy type guys though, because he's been out there making huge plays for us on special teams now for 2 weeks in a row. So I'm excited for him about a wide receiver just because of his build, right? Keep in mind we're talking about him being a replacement for Denzel Mims at one point prior to Jason Brownlee, but yeah, he might be a guy that might be a strong dual threat in terms of being a decent, let's just put the bar there, a decent wide receiver as a number 5 for the Jets, but an excellent special teamer. So even if he never turns out in anything great as a weapon, I can see him sticking around on our special teams for a while, unless somebody just thinks they're going to unlock him. I guess Bull Ride is raking it in. And look, who knows? What I know is what everybody else keeps telling me. The NFL is, the most paid major industry out there. So if that's not the majority of your bills, keeping in mind they already have all of the pharmaceutical stuff. I'm not trying to count anybody's, pockets, but if you really care about the team that much, and I really do think the owners get a lot of crap, but I really do think the Johnsons actually put a fair amount of resources into giving, the coaches and the players, let's say almost now, because we're talking about the turf, but everything they could have, right? We have one of the more top-notch weight, development programs and equipment. I remember when the VR stuff was getting crazy, a couple years back, we invested in the virtual reality stuff to kind of help with the development of the players. So I think they do quite a bit, but the field would, in my mind, that'd be the main thing. That's what they're playing on. That's what their bodies are going to be getting sacrificed on. You make sure that's in tip-top shape every time. Tippmann being out a while is tough. Really love what I saw from him. I wonder if JD makes a move at guard. If we make a move for anybody in the interior, I would be extremely concerned about Joe Tippmann. Ooh, that was nasty. I got don't mind me. I got my Sim Madden franchise stuff in the background. Nasty catch. Yeah, I would be legitimately concerned. I would say that's a red flag that Tippmann probably doesn't come back until the last couple of weeks of the season, or they're going to go ahead and shut him down. But again, I don't necessarily care to bring out a guard from elsewhere. I'm telling you guys, Jason Poe is a guard that's on our practice squad. We snatched him for the 49ers. Not only is the guy a physical freak, but I loved what I saw on game tape. I have a breakdown video, so you guys can check it out on the channel, but I think he could come in and he could be that who's the guard that went to the Steelers last year that we had that actually ended up being pretty good? Hold on. He could be the next version of a wait for it. A Nate Herbig for us. I think he could be one of those low-key guys that are actually starting level talents. If Woody was serious about this team, he'd leave the stadium and find an alternative with grass. Yeah, that's facts. I know earlier in the offseason, the New York mayor was talking about coming up with some kind of huge proposal because I think our contract is expiring with the stadium. Some kind of huge proposal to get us back in New York, like officially in New York, which is cool. It's kind of trash. I'm from Jersey, so I do like seeing that the team plays out of Jersey, of course. But understanding the natural progress of things, it would be great to see the Jets have their own stadium. They don't have to share with the Giants, and they can improve it or trick it out to however it is they see fit. That'd be pretty dope. Nate Herbig, yeah, good looking out. I'm gonna end up having to switch up how I'm running my Jets therapy sessions in a little bit. We stay on topic for a little bit and then we dive into all the comments, which is dope. Keeps the conversation going. But yeah, I might have to piece some things together. Have some of you guys on of course. Forgot to post the link today, but I know Boycott joined us last time. My boy Gino probably will come through on certain nights whenever he's having issues sleeping or whatever, whichever else you guys end up joining. But I appreciate you guys for sure. I'm going to get out of here and get me some tea for the voice and all of that so I can do the work thing in the morning. You guys have a good night. Safe rest of the work shifts or whatever else you guys got going on. I'm going to catch you guys again. Peace.